Welcome to 60 Skills. And the topic of today's discussion is, what are the different forms of Akasha? Okay, first we probably need to talk about what is Akasha. Akasha, literally speaking, is the power of the void. It is that thing that the void generates, out of which the 10,000 things or everything else springs. As a practical matter, the electric and magnetic, or the masculine and feminine, if you will, are the two first things that spring forth. All right, that's all well and good. But what are the different forms of Akasha? Well, practically speaking, there are at least 5 of these. And I'm going to talk today a little bit about what the different ones are and give a bit of a labeling system for those inclined to use it in order to talk about the specifics of these different kinds. All right, as many people know, I'm an adherent of Franz Barden's school of Kabbalah. And there are a lot of useful reasons for this, but the main one is it provides a very simple way of readily identifying different energetic forms across a band. Now, within this system, out of the different forms of Akasha, the first most people learn how to deal with is the letter E. This is, in fact, Terrestrial Akasha. And this may sound a little bit of an oxymoron, but stick with me for a minute here and I'll explain why this is. The elements, and Akasha is essentially one of those, manifest differently at different places in the universe. So within our universe, the most terrestrial form of Akasha is represented by the letter E. Now I'm going to use my formula book here so I can be more specific about this, but the letter E is an all-penetrating dark purple or dark violet colored energy. Now, depending upon what level of reality you're generating this at, which is also important, it has different functions. In its most ethereal form, it represents omni-consciousness or cosmic consciousness. Okay. Intuition at a more mental level, astral consciousness or the astral matrix at the astral level, and finally materialization and dematerialization at the vital or physical level. So for example, if you're doing the staring at rocks exercise, and you'll notice after a while the rock starts to flicker, well, that's Akasha making it come in and out of reality. Pretty interesting. Okay, well, if there's terrestrial Akasha, then obviously there must be a more universal kind of Akasha. Correct again. So what are the different kinds of Akasha? Well, this is the other one that people tend to run into quite a bit. This is the letter U, which is represented by a black velvet or black mercury type color. It is again all penetrating. It has a slightly lower pitch sound associated with it. And it represents, in its most ethereal, comprehension of Akasha, because this is the cosmic Akasha out of all the different kinds of Akasha. Intuition and inspiration at a mental level, transference of consciousness at an astral level, and of course, Akasha at a vital or physical level. This kind of Akasha tends to be encountered later on in someone's experience. One of the main differences, practically speaking, is it doesn't ground back to the body the way terrestrial Akasha associated with the letter E does. So this is something to keep in mind. Now we're going to talk about 3 other forms of Akasha. Interestingly enough, Earth energy, as represented by the letter umlaut A, or A umlaut, is a light brown colored energy that is the result of combining fire, air, and water. Now, why is this Akashically related? Well, one, all Earth letters are going to have a bit of an Akashic underpinning, because anytime you establish equilibrium by smashing all the other elements together, guess what you generate? A little bit of Akasha. So out of the different forms of Akasha, this form of Akasha generates both the penetration or penetrating sensation associated with Akasha, as well as a sense of heaviness. Curious. What else does it represent? Well, in its most ethereal, it represents life and death. At a mental level, it represents thoughts, actions, and wishes about matter. Okay. Astral level, desires and passions. And of course, at a physical or material level, physical matter. So these are the three most common forms of the different kinds of Akasha that most people will experience. Now I'm going to discuss a couple of others. One of which is the letter Y, or U umlaut, or UE, which is a pink colored Akasha. This again has that sensation of penetration that's universal to all kinds of Akasha. And it's actually the lightest of the bunch and probably the only one that's safe to work with for long periods of time. It primarily deals with the issue of rhythm, intuition and inspiration, prophecy, and condensation. Now again, I say the safest of the different forms of Akasha. Why is this? Akasha in general has a very pronounced draining effect upon the vital force of the body. As a result, you need to be careful with how much of this you work with. Out of the bunch, the pink Akasha is by far the least draining. Fair enough. All right, what is the fifth of the different forms of Akasha that most people tend to run into? That is the letter umlaut O. This is represented by a dark orange colored Akasha. It again has a sensation of penetration and heaviness. It represents transformation, Kabbalistic alchemy, astral projection, and transmutation. This is a bit less common for those of you who have worked with the Egyptian pantheon quite a bit. You will be familiar with this, as this is an energy that some of the entities involved tend to generate. It also has an interesting relationship to reproduction in men. I'm not going to spoil that here, but this is one of the reasons why ejaculation in men tends to deplete your access to Akasha. It's very curious. That said, it is an interesting energy to work with. Now, those are the 5 most common of the different kinds of Akasha that you can work with. Are there other forms of Akasha? You bet. But these 5 forms of Akasha, out of all the different kinds of Akasha, are by far the safest and most reinforcing to work with. There are other versions and subvariants, as there are with everything, but most of those can be rather uncomfortable to deal with and tend to be very hard upon the body. If you get to the point where you can work with these forces on your own, I encourage you to explore with this. That said, always remember to completely purge the body of Akasha utilizing vital force when done practicing, and always remember to have a big backlog of vital force in your system, or you're going to have a hard time working with Akasha and you're going to find it quite draining. So, if you enjoyed the topic of today's lecture, go down below and give us a like and perhaps hit the subscribe button. And if you would like to learn more about the 60 Skills curriculum, go into the details portion of the video down below. Otherwise, have a great day, train hard, and be well.